Dear Professor, a warm welcome to the Energy Council, and thank you for being us with today. We are looking forward to hearing your remarks. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. So I will spend the next 7 minutes or so talking about industrial electrification. What I want to do is first to set out the challenge we face with energy use in industry in Europe. Then I want to talk about industrial electrification and why that might be a way forward, talk about the potential and the benefits, talk about the barriers why we're not doing it already, and then point to some of the policy solutions. So let me start with the challenge first. And you all know this, but Europe is heavily reliant on fossil fuels at the moment that we import. The clicker doesn't work. By any chance, if we can get that to work, that would be great. Oh, that now works. So this shows you just how dependent we have become in Europe on imported natural gas. Almost 90% of all our gas use in Europe is dependent on gas imports. And we've become very painfully aware of this in the aftermath of the invasion of Ukraine by Russia, when at some point industrial companies in Europe paid about 5 times more than our counterparts in the United States. In the meantime, other countries are marching ahead. China has now been called the world's first electrostate. So what should Europe do? Should we just stand still and wait and see, or innovate and move on? And one way of innovating is, in my view and the view of many others, industrial electrification. The potential for that is actually much higher than what people commonly think. Already in 2020, research has shown that up to 78% of industrial energy use could be electrified with existing technologies. Interestingly, that's across all of the sectors, not just in light industry where temperatures are lower, but also in heavy industry with very high temperatures indeed. The good news is there's more to come. So there's technologies under development that will push up that potential. And indeed, just last year, Fraunhofer Institute in Germany have produced another study that corroborates these findings and points to about 90%, perhaps even more, of industrial electrification potential across Europe with technologies coming to market. That's just the potential, and you might ask the question, well, why should we do it? Yeah, there might be great potential, but what are the benefits of actually going for that? I'm just going to set these out briefly. The first benefit is improved efficiency, and this point was already made earlier. So industrial heat pumps, like the one you can see here, which is one of the largest industrial heat pumps in the world, can deliver the same amount of heat output for a fraction of the input, perhaps a third or a fifth of the energy input compared to fossil fuel combustion systems. But also technologies like induction heating, electric boilers, electrothermal storage can dramatically improve efficiency. And then added on top of that, existing equipment in Europe is often aged now. Old motors that can be replaced, be made more efficient. So overall, there could be significant efficiency gains. Why does this matter for competitiveness? We often talk about energy prices in Europe as if that was the only issue that matters for competitiveness. But really what matters is the cost of production, and the cost of production is a function of the cost of the energy input and the efficiency of converting that energy into useful products and services that we can then sell. The second benefit is that we don't rely so much on imports from other countries. We currently spend billions every year on imported fossil fuels. That is money lost to the European economy. In turn, if we use renewable electricity, and almost 50%, I just checked the numbers, 50% this year in Europe's electricity mix is now from renewables, that money goes to European businesses, to European society. And the third benefit of industrial electrification is that we already have a lot of companies headquartered in Europe that produce the solutions. The big heat pump manufacturers, electrothermal storage providers are headquarters predominantly in Europe. And if the sector expands, there could be an export opportunity for these sectors. And then finally, the companies that do this, there's a whole range of benefits that I can't go into because of time constraints. Just to point to a few: improved safety, reduced noise, air pollution, better product quality, and the ability to charge a green premium. These are all benefits for companies that adopt these new technologies. And that is why a recent McKinsey survey found that more than 90% of companies in Europe are now considering industrial electrification actively as an option for moving forward. But why is it not happening? Let me just talk about the barriers briefly. And colleagues and myself have looked at this in detail and published a paper just last month on this. And we found 4 main buckets of barriers. The first one is obvious, economic. Often the cost of these technologies are still too high compared to fossil fuel counterparts. operation of these technologies can be more expensive because of the way how we tax energy. There are also infrastructure barriers. Grid access can often be an issue. If you want to install new technologies, you might have to wait several years until you get connections to the grid. Technological barriers, where companies might want to do it, but the supply chain isn't quite ready yet with all the components that are needed to deliver on time. And then knowledge barriers. Think about small and medium-sized enterprises in particular. They will not be aware of the full range of solutions that they have. So the question is, how do we break through these barriers and move forward? It's complicated to do this, but I believe it can be done. And for every barrier, we found a policy solution. This is my last slide. So I just wanted to highlight 3 policy solutions in particular. The first one is a European Union-wide one. And I don't know how many of you know this, but the European Union is about to launch what is, I believe, the world's first industrial electrification auction. This is a €1 billion program. It could be a multi-year program. It could contain elements for small and medium-sized enterprises and for high temperatures. And this is a great example of European Union-wide policy to drive the sector forward. I already mentioned energy taxation. This is a national matter, of course, but it's so critical that we bring the taxation and levies in line with the decarbonization targets and electrification targets. And then finally, I think grid access can be improved. It's a bottleneck often, but if we prioritize installations that offer flexibility, that maybe have shared connection agreements and fast-track those, we can also break through some of the bottlenecks when it comes to grid infrastructure. Just a reminder, then I conclude. We have been here before with other technologies. I've worked in this sector for more than 2 decades now, and I remember well how we had fierce debates about light bulbs and the phase-out of the incandescent light bulb in Europe. How many of those do you still buy in the shops? There's almost none left because they've been ruled out. And the alternatives just work just as well. Or think about cars, renewables. We had the same discussions. I think industry is just the next frontier, and what it needs now is your support and ambition and optimism rather than just staying still and wait and see. Thank you very much.